Welcome to C Programming Tutorials. This is a production of YouTube channel Learnorama and the Facebook page Awesome C Programming Tutorials in High Def. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I would appreciate if you do so, because that way you could be notified of any new tutorials that I post. And I would also recommend that you become the fan of the Facebook page Awesome C Programming Tutorials in High Def. Okay, in today's tutorial we are going to learn how to pass how to pass the structures to a function, and actually essentially there are two ways of doing that. So hopefully we will cover in this tutorial we will just be able to cover the passing by value passing structure by value to a function, and then in the next tutorial we will basically cover how to pass structures by reference. So let's get started. In the previous tutorial, it's not necessary that you have to watch that tutorial, because it's about how to represent, how to access structures using pointers. That's what I was talking about, but it's kind of related here also. So I still have that code up here. Let me just take the pointers out for now. Okay. So we were actually writing a program where we were trying to represent a rectangle. A structure that represents the data associated with the rectangle. So we call it a struct rectangle, and since every rectangle has two elements or two properties that actually define that particular rectangle, it's its length and width, we put this as the member of this structure, and this way we represent a rectangle using this structure in our program. Okay, so if I give you a length and width, you can uniquely you can understand what kind of, you could draw that rectangle, if you will. So I basically kind of uniquely identified what rectangle I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the struct rectangle. Remember, this does not actually, from here to here, this does not actually define any variables, not even length or width. It just says that how a rectangle type variable, structure rectangle type variable is going to look like. Okay, here inside this main function, when we declare a variable called rect1 with this structure struct rectangle, that's when we basically create a variable called rect1 which has two members, length and width. So the memory is actually allocated at this point for this rectangle, and then we assign 10 for 10 centimeters. We assign length equal to 10, and we assign width equal to 5 for this rectangle. Okay, now suppose what I have to do is actually excuse me, what I have to do is actually say calculate the area of this rectangle. Okay, and for this I have to write a function that would basically calculate the area of a given rectangle. Okay, so first thing I have to do is to write the prototype or the header of that function. What is it going to look like? Okay, so first thing we have to specify is what type of value it's going to return, and we are talking about returning the area, the computing area and returning it. So the area, since the length and width are integer, the area, which is product of length and width, it has to be an integer also. So it's going to return integer, and what are we going to call that function? We'll call that function as area. And what is it going to take? Length and width. Is that right? Should I write int length and int width? No, because we already have accumulated these two together into a rectangle. So what are we going to take as input? So I have to compute the area of a rectangle. What would be the input? The rectangle itself. So I have to basically pass the rectangle, just like that, rectangle, and I'll call it any name, say rect. Okay, and then I'm going to actually finish the definition of this function, which basically says how are we going to, given this rectangle rect, how are we going to compute the area of that rectangle? So it's very simple. We know that rect dot width dot length multiplied by rect dot width should do the trick, right? If I multiply length with width, that's it. This will give me the value of the area, right? Now remember, this rect is actually defined or declared as struct rectangle itself. It's not a pointer, so we will be using dot to access its member elements. If it were a pointer, we would use the dash greater than sign, which looks like an arrow. Okay, so rect dot length multiplied by rect dot width. And what do? We have to store it somewhere. So let's call it result, or let's call it result is equal to rect dot length multiplied by rect dot width. This is perfectly okay. You declare the variable result and you initialize it directly by computing the area. This is perfectly okay. Or you could just declare that variable result and then you say result is equal to rect dot length multiplied by rect dot width. This is all perfectly okay. Okay, and then what we have to do, we have to return the value of result. Okay, this is it right here. This defines the whole function, how to compute the area and return it. Okay, now how are we going to use it? Very simple. We are going to call this function area and pass some rectangle. Remember, this is just a dummy argument. This says that given this rectangle, we can compute it like this, but when we call it, we have to give the real rectangle, and in this case the real rectangle is rect1. So we pass rect1 and this will compute area, but then it will return the value of the area, so we have to capture it somewhere, do something with it. Okay, so we store it in rect1 area variable. Okay, and before we use it, we have to declare what it looks like. What is the type of rect1 area? What should be the type of rect1 area? It should be the same type as the return value of this area, which is integer, because area is an integer here. Okay, because length and width are integers also. And then if we want, we could basically print the area of rect1 is %d, and then write the variable rect1 area, because that's the variable that holds the value of area. See that? Very simple program, but it demonstrates how to pass a structure rect1 all the way over to area. Okay, and let's run this program. I'll press F9 to compile and run it, and look at this, what it did. It says area of rect1 is 50, and how did it work? It always starts with the main function. It declares a rect1, which means that it allocates the memory rect1. Alright, and then what it does is, we are saying that we are also declaring a variable rect1 area, okay, an integer, and then we are initializing rect1 length equal to 10 and rect1 dot width equal to 5. So it puts the value of 10 inside the length member element of rect1 and 5 inside the width member element of rect1, and these are hard-coded values, right? We could have asked the user to enter those values, so it doesn't matter. And then we call this function area and pass this rect1. Now, thing to note here is actually, let's see. The thing to note here is that, let's see. Oops. This rect1 is, let's define it, let's draw it here, rect1, and this is essentially, it looks like this, length and width. And when we say equal to 10 and equal to 5, we are actually essentially storing 10 and 5 here. And then we are calling this function rect1, so we are passing it into rect. And remember, this is called passing by values. So what it does is actually it creates a copy, and rect becomes this thing right here, and it gets the same values as this guy here. And then this function operates on rect, and it computes the value 10 multiplied by 5 equals 50, and it passes that value back, and it gets stored in here, and then we print it out. So I'll conclude this here, and then I will basically continue with this tutorial in the next video. Thank you so much.